Good morning, everybody. You probably know me by now. We've been coming to Mount Salem here for a couple of years, and we finally sort of found our way into being home, and we enjoy it very much. This morning, I get the opportunity to bring a message in Will's series, and I want to highlight that. This is Will's series, and he's put it together, and when Will puts something together, it's just never surface. There's always something a little bit deeper that you're supposed to get. So I wanted to just do a couple things first. I want to give a plug for Sunday school. What a good place to engage the Bible. Yes, sometimes at a deeper level, but the thing is that we do it together. Boy, it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy it. And you'd be invited to join us. Another thing, I don't know, you know that there's a podcast for this, right? Like Albert did a podcast for Will's stuff. So you could listen to a podcast. And I don't know, like they ask questions, and I think there will be a podcast after this one. And you might want to go there. There might be a lot of stuff that I can't cover or that I just can't convey properly, because this one here is a bit of a difficult one, as you can see this morning. I am fortunate I've got Aiden doing PowerPoint for me this morning, and he's cranking. Sometimes when you do PowerPoint to you guys, some of the stuff gets lost in translation. PowerPoint, Microsoft to Apple, sometimes it doesn't work as well as it should, but I think we're going to be okay. So Kaylee gave me an opening slide, and this is called Joy. Pop to the next one right away, Aiden. And I'll see if all of a sudden, if you're not moving along, I might just, but you got to follow me, and you got to think with me, okay? You know, you say, where's this guy going? And that might be difficult. Okay. So I did that. Now, I want to read for you the text right away, and then I'll jump into it. Go ahead, just leave this one up there, and you can look at the picture. And I'd like you to take you with me to Matthew chapter 15, and I'm going to read Matthew 15:10 right through to 28. And if you remember, Will is kicking back against certain ideas. That's what he always does. He's saying, is that real? Is that right? And this morning, it's joy. And he's saying, look, there's something about joy that we're sort of missing and we're off to the side on. And he said, we're going to take this Canaanite woman as a model for joy. Stay with me, listen to the text. Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen and understand. What goes into a man's mouth does not make him unclean, but what comes out of his mouth, that's what makes him unclean. Then the disciples came to him and asked, do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this? He replied, every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by the roots. Leave them, they are blind guides. If a blind man leads a blind man, both will fall into a pit. Peter said, explain the parable to us. Are you still so dull? Jesus asked them. Don't you see that whatever enters the man's mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart, and these make a man unclean. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are what make a person unclean, but eating with unwashed hands does not make him unclean. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession. Jesus didn't answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, she answered, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Then Jesus answered, Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. The word of the Lord. So if you're looking at that text, you're probably thinking, joy. This is a model for joy. And you're going, where would I find joy in that text, in that picture? And you're probably going, well, you know what? There's a woman, she comes to Jesus. Her child is demon-possessed. Her child is healed. That's it. It's got to be the picture of, but Will, you could have chose a better text for joy than that. Come on. I don't think he could have chose a better text. And we're going to try to get there this morning. Now, here's the thing. How could the Canaanite woman be a model for joy? The gap is just too big for me. Consider the word. Oh, shoot. I didn't read for you this. Can you pop to my next slide here, Aiden? James 1, verse 2. James 1, verse 2. So James goes like this. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations, greetings. First thing, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds. For the testing of your faith develops perseverance. And perseverance must finish its work so that you might be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. And when you ask, you must believe and not doubt. For he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person shouldn't think they'll receive anything from the Lord, for they're a double-minded man, unstable in all they do. But look consider it pure joy. How do you tell somebody whose son has just passed away and comes to you and says, how am I supposed to find joy from that text in this situation? You see my gap? The gap is too big for, so you come with me this morning. We're going to take a look at this. And let's see if we can bridge the gap for you and come to a conclusion. But listen, Seattle plays at 4:05, so we have a little bit of time. Okay. Okay, good. Got an amen out of that. Good. The word consider, let's just do this first of all, because some of you might have been following in another translation and it says, count it all joy. And you're wondering, well, which is the correct one? Consider it a pure joy, count it all joy. That sounds a lot different. I'm going to suggest to you that maybe I shouldn't tell you which is the right one because I think I love both of them. Consider. Look at that word. Consider. If you take and view that word for a minute, it's actually asking us to rethink, to look at from a different angle. It's asking us to contemplate our understanding of joy and see if possibly there could be another angle, another view to it. And so my task is to take some things we viewed as opposites, like joy and sorrow, joy and pain, and bring them together to form a necessary marriage and paint them into some incredibly beautiful picture and try to get you to see them as that. This is going to be difficult. All right? So here are my problems that I have to overcome. Oh, shoot, no, I can't tell you that first. I got to tell you about Winnie the Pooh, right? Okay, so there was one episode in Winnie the Pooh. You guys have heard of Winnie the Pooh, I hope. Few of you? Come on, the 100-Acre Wood? Okay, so in one of the episodes, in one of the stories, Winnie the Pooh wants to catch a heffalump. So these are kids' books. So a heffalump. You have an idea what the heffalump is, right? Okay, good. It's an elephant. Yeah, but it's kid's way. So a kid but Winnie the Pooh knows he loves honey, okay? He loves honey. And everybody, if he loves honey, everybody loves honey, and they have to love it as much as Winnie the Pooh. So to catch a heffalump, obviously the bait is going to be the honey. So he's got his jar of honey, and he's dug a trap in this episode. And he gets it, and he's looking at the honey, and he goes, oh, boy. There's a bit of a problem here. How do I know that it's honey all the way down to the bottom of the jar? You don't know. Like a heffalump isn't going to be able to. isn't going to get there. It's Sunday school class, you've heard this one. And so what Winnie the Pooh does, as you know, he takes and he eats a little bit of the honey and he goes, well, okay, it's honey at least that far down. I wonder if it's honey a little bit further down. And so he eats, and you know how the story goes. He continues until the honey is absolutely gone. And in the story, the jar is on his head, and he's fallen into the trap, and Colby, there's no heffalump, and you never find the heffalump. The question that I want to bring for you with this whole thing is, how do we know what we're like all the way down at the bottom? That's the question that draws out. How can we know what we're really like as people all the way down to the bottom? I want you to hold that because that's my opening. Next one. Okay, this is where we're going. I've given you an entire outline. Just leave it here for a little bit. If you're taking notes and you want to know, can you see it at all, Rick, Jeanette? I know you, okay, good, because you couldn't see it at the meeting, though. I didn't want to say anything. I was with you. But I'm going, I'm not saying anything. Are you kidding? They think that's just the old guy. Now it's the young lady. I don't know. Okay, so you see it, number one, problems encountered, where joy comes from, going deeper inside. How do we get, you got this message, at least we better have something practical. You will need to know, how do I get joy? Come on. And then I'm going to give you a treat at the end. I think I will, because I had to go home to get the book from Voyage of the Dawn Treader. You got to get it. There's got to be something good, right, Colby? At least a story. Okay. Okay, so here's the problems that we have to encounter. Number one, how we view joy. You know, Hebrews 12:12, Psalm 30, verse 5, it says, mourning is for the night, but joy comes in the morning. I'm not sure if it was morning, but we view joy as an end thing. It's an end game. I do this, and then I get joy. We always see the end result as joy, and there's always this, woohoo, yeah. And everything else gets left in the dust, and we're always end result people, number one. Okay, I'm going to try to go through these quick, because I've got too much material, and it's just fine. Millennial view of offensive. Number two, you have to overcome these. You're going to have to overcome these and put these aside and say, that's not joy, that's not where, to be able to hear, to get what Jesus is actually teaching us, what the Canaanite woman is teaching us about joy. So there's a millennial view of offensive. Now, I'm not sure if I got what I mean by that. Well, look, everyone is offended, and everyone finds everything offensive in this generation. More than any other, I haven't seen it in a different generation. It just wasn't that way, but everybody's offended at everything. And you don't know who's supposed to be offended at what. I'm not going to break this down totally, but the illustration that sort of hits me hard, there's a couple of them, but I think of the Edmonton Eskimos, who was like, they were a powerhouse in the CFL. Oh, let's go. You don't like the Edmonton Eskimos. We're NFL people. Let's do the Washington Redskins. So they were the Washington Redskins, and they can't be that because it's offensive, right? So they are now the Washington Commanders. And I don't know if you know, if any of you followed the process, how they had to become the Washington Commanders. And some of you were thinking with me, well, that was a bit offensive. Listen, so the GM for the Washington Redskins actually did a survey of all of the Aboriginal tribes, indigenous tribes in all of the state of Washington, and asked them if they were offended that their name was with this football team, Washington Redskins. And they said, no, we're not offended. To the tribe, every tribe, 100% said, no, we're not offended. So they brought it back to the NFL and said, see, we can keep our name. And the NFL said, oh, no, you can't. And you're going, well, they're the ones who should have been offended. Well, yeah, maybe, but there's a different group of people that were offended for them. They said, look, you guys haven't been offended. You need to be offended. And later on, maybe some of them said, oh, yeah, maybe we should have been offended. So I'm just painting for you a millennial view. Listen, it's all rather confusing to me, but But let me move to the syllogistic problem, and then let me say that Jesus was offensive, okay? Syllogistic problem. So those of you who you all know this, Aristotelian syllogistic logic, it's just fun to say, and you all memorized it, right? You all know. Okay, so you have two statements and a conclusion. And so here's your two statements. It's really easy. I'll just give you one. Here's the syllogistic problem. Offending someone is wrong. Statement number one. Statement number two, Jesus doesn't do wrong. Conclusion, therefore Jesus can't be offensive and didn't say anything I found and didn't say anything offensive. So when I read this statement to this Canaanite woman, it can't be offensive. So I have to change the narrative like Will talks about. I got to change the narrative. You see the syllogistic problem? It's logical. Just logical. A plus B equals C. No way, he can't. So Jesus isn't offensive. Don't you worry. You can sit in your nice little seats and you'll be okay. Jesus is just wonderful and good and loving, and he'll never upset your little world. Everything's wonderful. Hold it. Number 4, Jesus was offensive. He offended people. Did you listen to the text that I read for you? Number 1, Matthew 15, verse 12. I'm racing again, sorry. Matthew 15, 12, the Pharisees were offended. The disciples came to him and said, Jesus, they're offended. Matthew 15, 13, Jesus says, well, they're blind guides. Oh, that must have been a really nice term for them, right? It's offensive. Blind guide, like that, you don't call them that. And then Peter, in Matthew 15, 16, Peter says, could you just explain the parable to us? And he says, are you so dull? Oh, that's another really nice thing to say, right? What have we done with Jesus? And then, how about Matthew 15, 26? Jesus refers to the Canaanite people, the woman and her daughter, as dogs. Kunerion. Little dog, actually. If it makes you feel better, I like that. We got to make sure that he only said little dog. That way, boy, there you go. They're only little dog people. Are you serious? But if you use this to diminish the true nature of Jesus' encounter with the woman, you'll lose sight of what happened and you'll lose sight of where joy is. Listen, when your truth disturbs my truth, there's conflict. If you present your truth as the right truth, I have a choice. I can change my truth and accept yours, or I can choose an emotional response, fight and go on the offensive, which is another, Kaylee says, finish your sentences. I don't do that. I thought you're with me. Okay, that's why I just kept going. You can fight and go on the offensive or go on the defensive, depending on my strategy. But at the heart of the matter, both you and I have been hurt, and I have been offended, and you have been offended. How are we going to respond to an offensive Jesus? Where does joy come from? Next point. So, man, we're moving along. Listen, why do we look at the demons and dragons of our world when the real demons and dragons are actually inside of us, the ones that we struggle with? You see, the dominant view is that we are shaped. This is the dominant view. We're shaped from the outside in, right? So all the circumstances that happen in my life, they're the things that shape and mold me. And those are the things that define whether I'm a joyful person or I'm a very miserable person. So if the circumstances go bad, like if I lose my job, if I can't make my payments, if I just can't be good enough at sports, if I don't get into the program that I want at school, if I can't find the right spouse, then inside I become a depressed person. Listen, Ecclesiastes does deal with the reality of this really well. I'm not doing that this morning, so that can be part of the podcast, something there. What I mean is we believe that things happen to us on the outside that shape us on the inside. So if I can teach you to learn how to share, and be nice people on the outside, then inside you'll be nice people. Look, how does this philosophy work? Jesus doesn't believe this philosophy at all. Jesus actually says it's what comes from the inside to the outside that actually defines who we are. And so here's what's happening. We're trying to make people change from the outside in, okay? It's like having this ball. We're exerting all this kind of pressure on the outside. If I do nice things, if you guys will just have good conversations with each other, if you're a nice church, then people will see that they'll see Jesus and they'll come to him. See, you're exerting all the pressure from the outside, and guess what happens when you let go? Oh, the ball just goes back to the same shape. And I exert all kinds of pressure from the outside trying to change it. And Jesus actually says, no, the problem is inside, and you have to actually change the inside to actually exert the pressure that really needs to happen. Look, what's the church about? The church about making a bunch of good people? No, the church is about the inside. Who are you on the inside? What do you like? What are you about? Because only when that change happens can I actually exude any kind of real change in society. It's the spirituality that's in here, and you've got to be saying to me, well, Randy, how do you change the stuff that's inside? Matthew 15:11 says, what goes into the person's mouth doesn't make him unclean, but what comes out of his mouth is what makes him unclean. We blame our external circumstances and the difficulties of our world. Like, you look at the stuff that we complain about. We complain about vaccines and COVID. We complain about the governments, and these are the bad. Meanwhile, we forgot that the demons are really inside of us. If we could change who we are, oh man, that would change the entire world. If I could just change me. The biggest problem, honestly, in this entire world is who we are inside. If we could just handle that. But it's funny that we can't even see, and we don't even go there. Who are we inside? We don't even know. You know, when we teach good morals, sometimes all we're doing is making bigger and better Pharisees. How is it that how is it that we haven't come to the conclusion in our society over the decades, centuries, that this isn't working, that this isn't how you can change? Look, if I just teach you to be a good person, go be a good person. How does that work for you? You do it for a little while, you get all your disciplines right, and then, oh, I'm back to the same thing it was before. Let's keep going. You should be thinking, how do I know what's deep inside, and how has it been shaped? How can it be shaped if not by my external circumstances? And you have come to the conclusion, I can't change it. And I think I know somebody who knows exactly how and how it can be changed. It won't be easy. Actually, I think it will be quite painful. It always is. What's inside? What is inside? Let's look. Okay, here we go. It's time to unpack what's inside the Johari window. So I sat down with Will, and I was explaining to him how C.S. Lewis has this idea that there's something that others see about you that you don't know yourselves. And I was explaining it to him, and he says, oh, you mean the Johari window? And I'm going, the what? He said, well, the Johari window. He says, let me show you. So he showed me, and I said, I go home, and I got to look at this. And so I went home, I said to Gloria, I said, have you ever seen the Johari window? She goes, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Like, how, am I the only one that doesn't know anything about the Johari window? I must be, no, okay. Here's what the Johari window looks like. It's a 4-pane window. And this is really important because we have 2 psychologists, Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingram, have developed this to help people understand their relationships with themselves and with others. So here it is. So in the first pane of the window, this is you. This is common knowledge. Like, everybody knows this about you. It's easy to see. Okay, you can't hide this. This is just how you are. Okay, so if somebody would say to you about me, they'd say, well, you know, Randy likes the Seattle Seahawks, and you're going, duh. Like, really? If you say Randy is a male and he's 6'4", you go, yeah, right. See? Okay, so you know already something. I have this height issue, but no. Me and I got it from my grandma. She was 5 foot nothing, and I'll tell you, she was feisty. But anyway, these are common things So then there's these. There's hidden things. There's things that only you know about yourself. Nobody knows this. Only you, and you know what. And you, oh, and are you kidding me? And you are not telling. No, those things they're not for public consumption. I know them, okay? That's another one. Then there's these they're blind spots. And there's the blind spots I was talking about. Things that others know that the self can't see. Really, and this necessarily. There's things that people look at you and go, you know what? Or not general, maybe your closer friends, they go, oh, are you serious? That's what they're like, and I know that's how they're going to respond. And they know this, and you're going, and when they tell you, how come you are like this? And they go, they just blow up, right? They go, I am not like that, don't you dare. And this gets pretty dicey because you are not willing to engage these kind of things. This is going to take this is going to take something special for that to happen. But those blind spots, you can't see them, others can. And you might go later on. I know I encountered a guy, and maybe you've encountered people like that. The guy tells me on a Monday morning, starts yelling and swearing at me. Like I don't even. You parked in the wrong place, and he's yelling and swearing, and I tell him exactly what I see about it. He doesn't appreciate it. Look at that, huh? Wow. No. Okay. And then there's these unknown things only God knows about the self. So. Listen, I want to dispel a little myth before I give you a conclusion here. I've heard people say that they're ready for others to tell them, to reveal. I'm mature enough now that I'm ready for you to tell me what I'm like. No, you're not. The very fact that you said that, I've had that happen, I'm going, are you kidding? That's the sign that you go, oh no. No, there's only a certain number of people that can ever speak into their life. Don't, because that's the sign that they're not ready for. You just, no. I'll promise you, I did it, and that wasn't a smart move. One thing that comes from wisdom. Look, did you look at this window? This is really interesting because in half of this window, half of it, there are things that you don't know about you. You say, well, I'm transparent. Oh, no. There's half of it. Look, Jack Nicholson told Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. Yeah. Listen, what's inside? This is a little dicey. This is a little bit scary. But the truth is, I think, we'll put it this way, we have layers. In the child message, he said we have these layers that we have built up over the years. When we're kids, the kids are transparent, right? But when we become adults and grow, we start to cover things up, and there's these layers that have built up. And to remove them to find out what's really deep inside is really difficult, and it's not easy. In 1945, the Allied forces came into Germany to free the Jews, to free the German people from the tyranny that was happening. And so in one of the situations, a commander and his troops went into and found one of the concentration camps, and they went in, and they were devastated because of all of the dead bodies, the corpses that were piled up. And you see, if you know about this, you're culpable, right? And so they came out and they found a village nearby, and they went to that village and they said to them, did you people not know what was going on? And they said, we didn't know. And so if you're culpable, you can be indicted, you can be tried. And so they took the people, the commander and his troops, they actually, by force, they forced them to go to that camp. And they forced them to look at the pile of corpses. And the people went back, and it was decided by the commander and his troops that they didn't know. But the mayor and his wife actually committed suicide. They hung themselves. You know why? They didn't know, but they knew. This is my point. Aiden, do you want to pop to the next slide? There's something down there. We know, but we don't know. There's something down there that's difficult. In Matthew 7, Albert referred to this in his last message. He talked about the log in the eye, and you know the text. The log in the eye, taking the speck out of the others. And I think the Greek really helps us here. So in the Greek word for the log, or we have the plank, it just doesn't quite get it, because if you go down to the root, actually it's a structural beam integral to holding up the house is the log. And so in that context, log is the right term. But in my house actually Ed would tell you about this, there's an I-beam that runs out because the floor joists can't span the whole thing, right? It's too wide. But so there's a steel I-beam, and it's that steel I-beam that holds up the floor joists. It would be that kind of a beam. And what's interesting about it is it's integral to holding up the house. And in the text in Matthew 7, it says, you don't know it's there. It's this beam, this big thing that's there, and you don't know it. See, I think, again, we're looking to the Bible for some moral adjustments. I just need to be a little nicer, be a little kinder, hold the door open for people. No, stop. What's down there is a lot bigger than that. And Tim Keller says, it's not just, we're not trying to do a little Christian makeover. He said it's called sin. And you're going, well, good. Now, at least you have, you've generalized it. Oh, no. Tim Keller said about sin, he said, there is no other concept that's big enough to describe the human condition. I think he's right. So you're probably thinking, Randy, you veered off the path. Joy and the Canaanite woman. No, I have not. We needed all of this. So we need to bring this together. How do we get joy? So I'm playing with the ball. I should have given it to Colby. Here, Colby. It's got the Hulk on it, so yeah. No worries. So how do we get joy? Well, we need to understand I'm racing. Oh, man. Understand the Canaanite woman and what she sees when we hear a derogatory remark. She doesn't hear it at all. She doesn't see it. She doesn't even flinch. And everybody's offended for her. What's going on? What does she get that we don't? Why doesn't she just tell Jesus, hey, listen, you know what? This is about my child. That's a bit racist and that's a bit derogatory. But when Jesus refers to her backhandedly as a dog, she doesn't flinch. Her response is crisp, clear, and to the point. She says this, Jesus, I have come to the same conclusion about who I am deep down inside. My dogness, and you're exactly right, you've nailed it. I identify with all those who have been in opposition to your work since the Egyptian slavery. I know who you are, and I know that you are the only one whose power is so vast that it can bring healing and salvation for me and my daughter. This is the epitome of joy. This encompasses the whole thing. She's come to the realization of who she is deep down inside. That's absolutely amazing. And Jesus says, what? I haven't seen any kind of faith like this. Oh, he did. He said about the same thing about a commander further back in Matthew. But it's it wasn't from the Jews. James said, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. See, joy is not just the end result. James is calling us to see that the whole process, count it all joy, he's saying. That's joy in its purest form. Listen, our Bible translators have struggled with this concept too. If you look back at the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, it says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. The problem with blessed is it's the Greek word makarios, and literally, if you just translate, it shouldn't be, it's happy. And you're going, happy are the people who are poor in spirit. What is he saying? See, it's not any kind of people. What he's saying is the very people who have actually come to the conclusion, this is what I'm like and I need Jesus. You say, well, yeah, but then, see, that's awesome, but then you get, no, Jesus is saying, when you just come to that conclusion, this is what I'm like, and I need you, and that's your, you have come to the place. We always go, but, okay, that was a good stage in life. Jesus says, oh boy, when you really think that you've overcome all that, eh? Oh yeah, Jesus, I asked you into my life, and now I'm just a better, wonderful person. At Uncle Harv's funeral, I'm not going to say exactly the word, but there was before, at the speaking beforehand, he shared something Uncle Harv had said. He had said, there's people who are jerks, and then they ask Jesus into their hearts, and then they're Christian jerks. But he's right. He's right. How do you get in? How do you tear the layers off to get down and say, this is what I'm really like? Wow. Listen, how do we get there? We have to, you're saying to me, Randy, you said, how do I get joy? I'm going to tell you right now, I'll give you your formula. Henry Nouwen said this, listen carefully, you write this down. It is a fool who approaches to conquer their demons on their own and with their own tools. It's a fool. You think, look, I've got this. I can do this. I'll start. Henry Nouwen says it's a fool. I have to agree with Henry Nouwen. Oh boy, it's so incredibly deep. Listen, we have to allow Jesus the right to speak truth to who we are and what we're like. Careful. He will ask the hard questions. He will reveal things from his part of the window, the Jahari window, the things that, if he reveals, how are you going to respond? How am I going to respond? And you were talking about things that, like, don't tell me I'm arrogant. Don't tell me I'm prideful. Don't tell me I'm greedy. Don't tell me any of them things. And Jesus, if God reveals it, how do you think he's going to do it? Hand you a bouquet of flowers? No, it's not. This isn't pretty stuff. This getting joy. Listen, we have to allow Jesus the right to speak truth, and it's going to cut like a knife. Hey, was that not who sang it? Thank you. Oh, yeah, you're with me. Michael, that was, who said it? Albert, yeah. Okay. Michael, come on, Brian Adams sang, okay, sorry. My goodness, I'm from a different culture, a different time zone. Okay, you need Jesus to how he can speak truth into your life. Listen, and number two, I really think we need a spiritual friend, a couple friends. Let's careful. Like, who are you going to let into that little tight space? And it doesn't happen very quickly or easily. And a spiritual director to speak into that part of the window into your life. And it's very precarious. There are very few people know how to say those hard things. Very few. Lots of people may say the hard things, but certainly we don't listen. We're deeply offended. And she wasn't. Listen, Proverbs 27, verse 6, and Will pointed this out in his message. When Jesus wounded him, when Jesus he talked about Peter, Jesus saying to Peter, do you love me 3 times? And it says Peter was hurt, deeply hurt. Why? Proverbs 27, verse 6 says this, faithful are the wounds of a friend. I'd be very careful who I let cut me that deep. Joy can be a very painful process. Your demons and your battle may not be for public consumption, but they may be something a spiritual friend or a spiritual director could walk you through. Hey, weren't any of us intrigued at Anita's passing, at Anita's funeral, that all of a sudden you find out Arlene and Gloria are, who's Gloria? We're not related to the Dykes. What's she doing up there? More than 20 years ago, they made a commitment, those 3 ladies, to be spiritual friends. And it started one way and it grew. And they had a relationship that is just sort of curious to all of us who watched from the outside. And you're saying, well, oh no, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that those ladies know stuff about me that I would probably be very uncomfortable with. Okay? But at least they have got a vow of silence and a vow of friendship. But they shared stuff. Do we have that? Do we have a place where we can actually go that's really safe? Okay. I want to close with the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. You got to hear this. C.S. Lewis. Okay, some of you will talk about kids. How many of you have read the trilogy, not trilogy, okay, some of you? Okay, good. This is the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. We read them to our kids. I've read them a few times. And when I told Gloria about this message, she said, oh, this is about Eustace. Okay, so, and you're going to say, well, it's kid stuff. It's a story. Oh, boy. Story theology is far better than any kind of theology because it just paints a way broader picture. You need this. So I'll lead up to the story, and you're going to at least I got one thing about this. So Randy read a story, but listen. In this story here, Eustace, he's not a nice kid, okay? Not nice at all. His friends, I can't bring you all up to speed, but they don't like him, but he somehow comes along on this voyage, and it's a ship. And they're going to find the different princes of Narnia of old. They're trying to find them and see what's going on. And they stop at this one island, and Eustace, the bad kid, goes out, and he's looking. And he's just nasty. And he goes out, and he goes into this one valley, and there's a dragon. And he's scared. And he watches in this dragon, and he thinks it dies beside the lake. And he's scared, but he can't get out, and it's nighttime, and so he climbs into its cave. And you know, if any of you know anything about dragons have a treasure, right? And so Eustace lies down in the treasure at night, and he puts on this ring, onto his arm from the dragon. It's an arm ring. They had arm rings back in those days, so don't worry about it. And he becomes a dragon. And this is how C.S. Lewis talks about becoming undragon-like. Are you ready? Here we go. I won't tell you how I became a dragon till I can tell the others, Eustace said, and get it all over. By the way, I didn't even know I was a dragon till I heard you all using the word when I turned up here the other morning. I want to tell you how I stopped being one. Fire ahead, said Edmund. Well, last night I was more miserable than ever, and that beastly arm ring was hurting like anything. Is that all right now? Eustace laughed, a different laugh from any Edmund had ever heard him give before, and slipped the arm bracelet off easily. There it is, he said. Anyone who likes it can have it as far as I'm concerned. Well, as I was saying, I was lying awake and wondering what on earth would become of me, and then, but mind you, it may have been all a dream, I don't know. Go on, said Edmund, with considerable patience. Well, anyway, I looked up and saw the very last thing I expected. A huge lion coming slowly toward me. I better interject here. The lion in C.S. Lewis is Aslan, and he's Jesus. He's the image of Jesus, okay? And one queer thing was that there was no moon last night, but there was moonlight where the lion was. So it came nearer and nearer, and I was terribly afraid of it. You may think that being a dragon, I could have knocked any lion out easily enough, but it wasn't that kind of fear. I wasn't afraid of it eating me. I was just afraid of it, if you can understand. Well, it came up close to me and looked me straight in the eye. I shut my eyes tight, but that wasn't any good because it told me to follow it. You mean it spoke? Well, I don't know. Now that you mention it, I don't think it did. But it told me all the same, and I knew I'd have to do what it told me to. So I got up and followed it, and it led me a long way into the mountains. And there was always this moonlight over and over. So at last we came to the top of a mountain I'd never seen before. And on the top of this mountain, there was a garden, trees and fruit and everything. In the middle of it, there was a well. I knew it was a well because you could see the water bubbling up from the bottom of it, but it was a lot bigger than most wells, like a very big round bath with marble steps going down into it. The water was as clear as anything, and I thought, if I could get in there and bathe, it would ease the pain in my leg. But the lion told me I must undress first. Mind you, I don't know if he said any of those words out loud or not. I was just going to say that I can't undress because I didn't have any clothes on. And suddenly I thought that dragons are snaky sort of things, and snakes can cast their skins. Oh, of course, thought I. That's what the lion means. So I started scratching myself, and my scales began coming off all over the place. And then I scratched a little deeper, and instead of just scales coming off, and there, my whole skin started peeling off beautifully, like it does after an illness, or as if I was a banana. In a minute or two, I just stepped out of it. I could see it lying there beside me, looking rather nasty. It was a most lovely feeling, so I started to go down into the well for my bathe. But just as I was going to put my feet into the water, I looked down and saw that they were all hard and rough and wrinkled and scaly, just as they had been before. "Oh, that's all right," said I. "It only means I had another smaller suit on underneath the first one, and I'll have to get out of it too." So I scratched and tore again, and this underskin peeled off beautifully, and I stepped out of it lying beside the other one and went down to the well for my bathe. Exactly the same thing happened again. And I thought to myself, oh dear, how ever may I get these skins? How am I going to take them off? For I was longing to bathe my leg. So I scratched away for the third time and got off a third skin, just like the other twos, and I stepped out of it. But as soon as I looked at myself in the water, I knew it had been no good. Then the lion said, but I don't know if it spoke, "You'll have to let me undress you." I was afraid of his claws, I can tell you. But I was just pretty nearly desperate right now, so I just lay flat down on my back and I let him do it. The very first tear he made was so deep that I thought it was going to rip out my heart. And when he began pulling the skin off, it hurt worse than anything I've ever felt. The only thing that made me able to bear it was the pleasure of feeling the stuff peel off. You know, if you've ever picked the scab of a sore place, it hurts like a billy. Oh, but it is such fun to see it coming away. "I know exactly what you mean," said Edmund. "Well, he peeled the beastly stuff right off, just as I thought I'd done it myself the other 3 times, only they hadn't hurt. And there it was lying on the grass, only ever so much thicker and darker and more knobbly looking than the others had been. And there was I, as smooth and soft as a peeled switch, and smaller than I had ever been." Then he caught hold of me. I didn't like that much, for I was very tender underneath now that I had no skin on. And he threw me into the water. It smarted like anything, but only for a moment. After that, it became perfectly delicious. And as soon as I started swimming and splashing, I found that all the pain had gone from my arm. And then I saw why. I turned into a boy again. You'd think me simply phony if I told you how I felt about my own arms. I know they've no muscle and are pretty moldy compared with Caspian's, but I was so glad to see them. After a bit, the lion took me out and dressed me. Dressed you with his paws? Well, I don't exactly remember that bit, but he did it somehow or other in new clothes, the same I've got now. And as a matter of fact, and then suddenly I was back here, which is what makes me think it must have all been a dream. "Oh, no, it wasn't a dream," said Edmund. "Why not?" "Well, they're the clothes for one thing, and you've been, undragoned for another." "What do you think it was then?" asked Eustace. "I think you've seen Aslan," said Edmund. You see, Jesus calls her a dog, a remark that runs deep. Let me say this. Here's the thing. You and I sit from the outside and watch Jesus' derogatory remarks, and we're the ones who need to try to minimize the damage, change the narrative. Meanwhile, the woman doesn't blink. Jesus calls her a dog, a remark that runs deep. Jesus has just ripped through multiple layers of her dragon skin, and she knows that to become human again, for her daughter to be released, all this is the necessary route. This is joy. You see, all we want to see is the girl made whole. Our limited view, that's what's joy. No, we want wisdom without silence. We want spiritual growth with no exercise. We want relationships with no disagreements. We want pleasure without pain. Sometimes, all the time, we need to sit down in the hurt to understand the joy. I don't think we can have heaven without an offense of Jesus. Let's pray. Lord, it is so hard when you start peeling away when we allow that kind of work to happen in us. And yet the whole process, James says, is joy. It's hard for us to get that. Lord, forgive us for wanting the shortcut, the short route to what you have in store for us. You are the God who sees, who loves. Help us to become vulnerable to you, to your work that is so necessary deep inside. In your name, in the healing name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.